بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الله الغني وأنتم الفقراء، والله الغني وأنتم الفقراء، والله الغني وأنتم الفقراء، وإن تتولوا يستبدل قوما غيركم.
Zakat on 401k. The Zakat on 401k. If you participate in a 401k plan, a 403b plan, whatever retirement plan, what do you think? How much money, how much Zakat do you need to pay on this, on your asset in the plan?
Whatever is accessible for you to take out.
Whatever is accessible for you to take out. That's a good answer.
After penalty.
After the penalties, absolutely.
It's accessible.
Because the zakat is only due on the money that is under your control. Tamam al-mulk wal-iyazah, complete ownership and the ability to possess the money. Okay, if you go to the 401k plan and tell them I want my money, they'll give you about 60% of it. 40% will go to taxes and penalties. That 60% is zakatable. That 60% is zakatable. But is that 60% cash or what is it? Stocks, right? Shares and stocks. Because do you put it right or wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. Shares and stocks. If you are a day trader, the zakat of shares and stocks for you will be just like the zakat for cash, because shares and stocks for you are trade goods. You are a day trader. The shares and stocks are your trade goods. Is that clear? Day traders, don't listen to the rest of this. You got your information, that's it. If you're somebody who puts his money, if someone who puts his money into one of those mutual funds and leaves it for 20 years, leaves it until he retires, that's not a day trader. It's a different type of investment. Should we treat those stocks and shares like we treat cash? No, we should not. In all honesty, we should not. Why is it that we should not? Not because the profit on the stocks and shares is about 4% on average and the zakat is 2.5%, the zakat will be more than half of the profit that you make every year. No. But because stocks and shares are not cash. The Enron shares dropped from $90 to $1 overnight, right? Or over whatever, 1-2 nights. In a very short period of time. What does that tell you? It's not cash. Had it been cash, would you think that you would have lost 90% of the value of the dollar overnight? No. Then this is not cash. And there is a risk, for that, like a significant risk in that investment. Therefore, the scholars had three different positions. Some of them said, okay, give out 2.5% regardless. Some said 2.5% on the total of your stocks and shares, regardless of what this is, and we don't care, it is like cash. We'll treat it like cash, otherwise we'll cause ourselves confusion.
So we'll have of the 60%.
Of the 60%. 2.5 of the 60% that you'll be able to walk away with home. But they were not talking about the retirement plans per se. They were just talking about the stock market, the zakat of the stock market. Is the zakat of the stock market 2.5% like cash? Or, like some other scholars said, 10% of the profit. 10% of the profit. So you ask them, where did he come up with this? they'll tell you, we will consider those stocks and shares to be like a fertile land, and the profit like the crops that come out of the fertile land. And since you're not doing the work yourself, you're just putting your money into an Apple sort of or mutual funds that will do the work for you. You're not doing the work for yourself. We will consider this fertile land to be irrigated by natural resources, rain, not labor. So 10% is the zakat on land, on crops that are irrigated by rain, without labor. So that is an ijtihad, and we respect all of the ijtihad of all the scholars. However, we believe the preferred position, the stronger position, is the position of the scholars who said, estimate for it. Estimate what? Now, you have your money invested with Apple. You have your money invested with Apple. It will be easy if you are literate in finance to get the report every year and figure out how much zakatable money they have. What is the zakatable money that Apple has? Their iPhones, their laptops, everything that is ready for sale is zakatable. Their headquarters, not zakatable. Their factories, not zakatable. Their cars, not zakatable. Their trademark, not zakatable. So what is zakatable? Their trade goods and their cash surplus. For most of the companies, they have 7 to 8% cash surplus. If Apple, that's a different story, a completely different story. But if you're investing with Apple, your zakat will be much bigger. So these are zakatable properties. All of this is zakatable. So you'll be able to figure it out. The problem is most of the people invest in mutual funds, particularly those who are invest in retirement plans, they invest in mutual funds. So how can they figure it out? We asked some people in this field, in finance, because it is extremely hard to come up with an accurate number. Because if the money that is invested with Macy's is predominantly zakatable. Macy's, the retailers, trade goods is basically the bulk of their asset. If you invest your money with AT&T, what do they have that is zakatable, AT&T? They have towers, not zakatable. They have ships, not zakatable. Cars, not zakatable. Headquarters, not zakatable. They have cash surplus, and I don't know if they still sell phones. They used to sell phones in the old days. They may not be selling phones anymore. So they may not have trade goods.
But they sell airtime, so they make
They sell what?
Airtime, though. They're making money on the airtime every month. It's like they're selling you airtime.
No, they're leasing you airtime. Yeah, they're leasing you airtime. It's not zakatable. So at any rate, it varies so much. So with mutual funds, a rough estimate is 33%. 33% will be zakatable. 33% is 1/3. Now we're talking only to people who have money in retirement plans. If your money is not in a retirement plan, you're investing in the stock market, you will pay zakat on 1/3 of the total. Clear? If your money is in the retirement plan, you will pay zakat on 1/3 of the total that you would walk away with, which is 60%. Now you're paying money on 20% of the gross total. The number that you will get on your statement, the gross total, you're paying zakat on 20%. 2.5% on 20% is like 0.5% on the grand total. So if you want to remember one number, you have money in a retirement plan, you want to remember one number, your zakat is 0.5% on the grand total that comes to you on the statement from whichever company that manages your retirement plan. Any question about this?
What about Roth IRA? Because there's no penalty for Roth IRA, right?
Whenever there is no penalty and you can take all of the money, then your zakat is on 1/3 of that. Because whatever money that is in the stock market is not all zakatable. There is that which is zakatable and that which is not zakatable. And we said that about 1/3 of the stock market is zakatable. Okay, a rough estimate. So you're paying on 1/3.
Talk about upon cashing out, right? Upon cashing out, when you cash out.
No, not when you cash out. You're paying the zakat every year. Well, the poor people will not wait for someone 40 years until he starts to get his retirement. Because keep in mind, a lot of wealthy Muslims, could have no assets but their retirement plans. They basically put all of their money in their retirement plans. And they could be physicians making like this much money, or IT guys making this much money and putting all of their money in retirement plans, and just I have no money. So in this way, the zakat, the fiqh of the zakat is all about the interest of the poor. So we make sure that there are no loopholes in the fiqh of zakat, so that the poor will always have their due rights.
So,
Yes.
so if there is 100,000 in a 401k plan,
Yes.
so your conclusion is 0.5% of the 100,000 or 0.5% of 60% of the 100,000?
0.5% of the 100,000. If, 0.5% of the, So basically on every 100,000, how much money will you need to pay in zakat? Just $500. Is that much, brothers? Well, it's not. $500 on every 100,000. And if you have 600,000, that's $3,000 for $600,000.
What about savings funds?
Anything, you apply the same. All of these things are invested in the stock market. Whatever it is that you can claim, you pay 1/3 of that which you could claim. You pay on 1/3 of that which you could claim.
So investment in college funds would be 2.5% of 1/3.
If it is in
16%.
Can you claim it all? Oh, I don't know. I don't have a college fund.
College funds would be invested in like mutual funds.
The money that you have in the college fund, if you want to take it out, will they give it out all to you? Or there are penalties and taxes involved?
No, they are like you have to pay the state tax.
Okay.
But what I mean is, it is similar to you are on money that you're investing. Say you put money, it's not retirement, in mutual funds.
Yeah. If you put money that not retirement, if it is similar to that, then yes. Then you're paying on 1/3.
Yeah, 2.5% of the 1/3.
Of the 1/3, yes. If it is like money that you just invest in the mutual funds. The next point here is zakat on jewelry. We covered this, right?
There's one question here about the
Yeah.
There's an old opinion that I heard long time ago
Yes.
from some scholar.
Zakat on jewelry.
Yeah. From some scholar in Norway. He said, usage versus investment. He says, you're using that tool once in a lifetime.
Yes.
When you do it once in a lifetime, you don't have to do it on an annual basis.
you pay zakat once in a lifetime.
Yeah. No. He's saying that if you're using it even once in a lifetime, you don't need to pay zakat on it.
No. What I said is what he just said.
Oh.
If you have gold for using, your zakat is only once in a lifetime. You don't have to do it on an annual basis. If you are using, that's I heard a long time ago on acting on that.
Okay, I have not heard of that position. It's not a position of any of the forms that. So, I don't know of it. It is not the position of any of the four madhab. In the four madhab, in the Hanafi madhab, zakat is binding on jewelry once it reaches the nisab, regardless of the intent of having this jewelry, whether it's investment or usage. And according to the Maliki, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, it is binding only if the purpose for having the gold or silver is investment and not usage. And then we said, because these two positions are extremely competitive, equal, in terms of the weight of the evidence on both sides. There is a lot of weight for the evidence on both sides. So we're saying, at least if you will go by the position of the majority, if you'll take the position of the majority, at least when the niyyah is not clear, your intent, the purpose of having this gold and silver, your niyyah about it is not clear, then you should pay the zakat. لا اتفضل انت الامام.
But just because the Sheikh did come a very long way and we don't want things to get hectic and waste more time, they had requested that we use the first Al-Haj a little bit, just so we can get through the last two chapters. Zakat on trade goods, subhanAllah, and Masalih for Zakat, where you can spend your Zakat. We have Zakat now, where to spend it, those two things. And then the questions, whoever still wants to stay behind for questions, after Salat al-Isha, which will be at 10:30, we'll take the questions, inshallah. So forgive us for that. Jazakallah khair.
Zakat on trade goods. Zakat on trade goods. Quickly, we did cover the zakat on trade goods to a certain extent, because we talked about the lunar year, the solar year, 2.577%, or adding 3.1% to your zakat. So if you own a store, you're not paying zakat on the store, you're not paying zakat on the windows, you're not paying zakat on the hangers, you're not paying zakat on anything except the merchandise ready for sale. That is what you're paying zakat on. That's what you're paying zakat on. You inventory all of that, and you figure out the wholesale price, and you pay the zakat on the wholesale price of your complete inventory once a year. Is that easy? So you decide for yourself which year you will inventory your store or stores. You figure out the merchandise that you have, the value of the merchandise that you have in wholesale, not retail. In wholesale and not retail. And you pay 2.5% on that.
Wholesale, what you paid for it, or wholesale, the present wholesale?
The present wholesale. The present wholesale. You estimate how much the present wholesale is, and you pay the zakat on the present wholesale price of all of your inventory, 2.5%, or 2.577% if you're doing it once every solar year. And the zakat in this case is paid in cash. This is the only time when the zakat is paid of a different kind. The zakat is always paid in kind, but it's paid on trade goods in a different kind of wealth, because if your trade goods are like tissue, you're not going to go out to the poor and give them like 200 boxes of tissue. And stuff like this. So it's paid in cash. However, some of the scholars said that if it is better for the poor to pay them in kind, pay them in kind. The fiqh of zakah is about the interest of the poor. If it was better for the poor to pay them in kind, pay them in kind. If your trade goods are very useful to the poor, pay them in kind.
I have a question about this subject. So if I have a lot where I sell, for example, cars, classic cars, and I bought them 10 years ago, and they were $1,000 a piece. but then now your prices are much higher, but they're not selling.
Okay, good question. Now, there is the difference between التاجر المحتكر والتاجر المدير. التاجر المدير is the one who sort of circulates the products quickly. The trade goods go fast, and that is a التاجر المدير. And therefore, for that type of merchant or trader, he will have to pay the zakat on everything every year, once a year. Now, for someone who buys stuff and waits for the markets to appreciate, someone who buys land, waits for the market to appreciate, or buys like a certain type of car, and waits for the market to appreciate, this person will need to pay the zakat upon selling this land or car once upon selling, not every year. This is a minority position, but that is what we use for fatwa nowadays, because sometimes, like if you have like a widow, for instance, who inherited a piece of land, and she keeps it for her kids, or we can't tell her you pay 2.5% on the entire land. If she not keeps it for her kids. She keeps it to sell it for her kids in the future. She wants to keep it so that she may sell it in the future when the market appreciates for her kids or for herself, whatever. If we tell her you need to pay zakat 2.5% on this piece of land every year, she may not be even able to keep it because she doesn't have the cash to pay the zakat. It will be too much. So we take that position of Imam Malik. This is the position of only Imam Malik. So the Hanafis would say no to this. The Shafi'is would say no to this. The Hanbalis would say no to this. Only Imam Malik is the one who made the distinction between those two different types of traders. But we find a lot of strength for his position. Particularly nowadays, it's very applicable to many scenarios. So we take that position. Now, the final chapter here is payable to whom? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين في سبيل الله وابن السبيل. So, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم, for the poor and the needy, the zakat collectors, and those whose hearts are to be reconciled. For الرقاب, to free the slaves and captives, and the ones in debt, or the ones who guaranteed someone in debt and they incur the liability because they guaranteed someone who was in debt. وفي سبيل الله, for the cause of Allah, وابن السبيل, and the wayfarer. These are 8 different types. Imam Shafi'i wants you to give to each one of those different 8 types if you can. He forces you to give to divide your zakat like that. The rest of the Imams would say that's fine if you give it to one time. But Imam Shafi'i wants to make sure that we are equitably considering all the 8 types. I would take an hour to talk about this chapter, so I'm trying to figure out what should we talk about here. Keep in mind that when you're giving the zakat, you're trying to really find the people that will make the best use out of it. Don't do it with love. You know that taklif al-shar'i, the religious burdens are called taklif. The word taklif has a very beautiful meaning. I talked to you about the homonyms in Arabic and how they relate to one root and how that root has different implications. You know, كَلِفَ الرَّجُلُ امْرَأَتَهُ means the man loved his wife. كَلِفَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ زَوْجَهَا means the woman loved her husband. So taklif means a burden that you perform, that you carry out with love, lovingly. So it's a burden, but you're doing it with love, because you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do it with love. And if you really do it with love, you will do it with excellence, with ihsan, with perfection. So it is not like, you just want to get rid of your obligation, you just get it over with. It's my zakat due date, I get this much money and I just give it to somebody so that I can move on with my life. No. It's where you find the most deserving of those people. And you work hard so that you get it to someone who's really deserving. It's someone for whom the zakat will make a difference, will change his heart, his life, will make a difference for him. He really needs it. So the scholars say, a pious person is given precedence over a non-pious person. Someone who is studying the knowledge of the deen is given precedence. Someone who's sick is given precedence. Someone who is a captive is given precedence. Someone who has a lot of children is given precedence. You look for people that are needy. Someone of those who they do not nag the people asking them for, they are not beggars, is given precedence. تعرفهم بسيماهم. You know them from their characteristic signs, but they don't ask for money. يحسبهم الجاهل أغنياء من التعفف تعرفهم بسيماهم. The ignorant person will think that they are wealthy because they look fine. They hide it. They hide their poverty very well. So anyways, you look for those people, and the scholars used to say, لا يتم المعروف إلا بثلاث خصال. لا يتم المعروف إلا بثلاث خصال. تصغيره وتعجيله وستره. لا يتم المعروف إلا بثلاث خصال. تصغيره وتعجيله وستره. That, ma'ruf, which is a good deed, is not perfected except by three qualities. So you need to do a good deed with three different qualities. تصغيره, to minimizing it. What does that mean? It is to think of the smallness of your deed. You don't, in your own consideration, you think, how small is this deed? So you're donating $20,000 to the masjid for renovations, and you say to yourself, how small is this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let me wake up today with my eyesight. How much is my eyesight for? So you compare your deeds to the ni'am of Allah, to the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on you. Billahi alayk, how much would you spend to basically regain your eyesight? How much would you be willing to spend to regain your eyesight? Don't you wake up every day with your eyesight intact? And others are losing their eyesight every day throughout the world. So shukr al-ni'mah here. How could you do it? How could you think of any of your deeds as big? And when you compare it to the ni'am of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on you. So tasghiruhu is the first thing. Whatever you're doing is really very little compared to the ni'am of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ta'jiluhu is to expedite it. You do it as fast as you can. That's why ta'jil zakat is an indication on your love. An indication that you're doing it lovingly. You're not doing it resentfully. So the person that waits until the zakat due date, try to give in advance and to give more and to give extra. And if you give for advance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very generous. This deen is extremely practical. You could give for up to 1 year in advance. Let's say your budget is limited and you don't have that much money to give beyond your zakat, and you pass by someone who's really just in bad shape, and you want to give them money, and you want to give them a good amount of money to help them out. One of your brothers is admitted to the hospital, his kids don't have someone sustain them, etc., and you want to give them a sizable amount of money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed you to take from your next year's zakah and give them now. So give them and subtract it from your zakah of next year. Give them and subtract it from the zakah of your next year. You could give your zakah in advance for up to 1 year. According to the majority, some of the scholars said 2 years, but let's keep it just at 1 year. 1 year. You can give your zakat in advance up to 1 year. That's a great opportunity. So the last thing is tasghiruhu, ta'jiluhu, and satruhu, and to hide it. to hide it as much as you can. Now, in the Muslim countries, zakat is taking, the authorities take the zakat, collect it and give it and so on and so forth. But here, you hide your zakat per default, but when there is a benefit in showing it, make sure that you have a very good control over your heart. And if you're quite sure that your heart is in check and you have good control and you're not showing off and you're not being pretentious, then you may show it in certain cases. Particularly if the money is manifest, you need to show the people that you are paying the zakat of this money. What is the manifest? The mal is zahir, the manifest wealth, like livestock. If you have livestock, a farmer, livestock, crops, things of that nature. That's money that everybody is seeing. And the fuqara تتعلق به قلوبهم. So they become sort of attached to the money, or they feel some sort of entitlement. The fuqara of your village feel some sort of entitlement. So you should give your zakat in public in this case. But generally speaking, the Salaf, the righteous predecessors, Ridwanullahi alayhim, they used to be very, very discreet with their zakat and charity to the point where the receiver would not know who the donor is. The receiver would not know who the donor is because it was usually given through a third party. قولوا قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. Inshallah, after Aisha we can entertain any questions or answer whatever I know, inshallah.